So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
We came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
All personnel aware of the proper protection of women. This includes all personnel identified as staff and role players, EIDs, and support staff. Feet, eyes, throat, and groin protection is mandatory and should be worn at all times by personnel directly involved in or near the scenario. Always check your masks prior to use to ensure there are no cracks and the mask is in safe working condition.
Should I put the water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. So this is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Dean's yelling at me.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Pull them out. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face.
On your face.
On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Let's get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy.
Yes, we are exfilling.
It's actually around 92
294, there was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place.
Okay.
So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team.
Uh-huh.
So
okay.
they regenerated the idea of
I see.
activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
Uh-huh. Okay. And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends.
Or
I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else.
Yeah.
That we might be faced with.
Uh-huh.
And that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It's me, kiddos. I'm Clinton Yates. I'm a columnist at the Washington Post. I'm filling in for Bill here on May 8th, 2015. I want to thank you all for tuning in. We are, of course, live on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. You can see Free Speech on DirecTV and on the Dish Network. If you want to check us out on TawkrTV, see my, what am I wearing here today? This is a striped blue shirt. Had to wear this on international television. Had to buy it just for that because I was wearing a t-shirt today. They asked me to do that. That's a side story. On TawkrTV at youtube.com/TawkrTV. Of course, you can tweet us at BP Show. And if you want to give us a phone call, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377 is the number. It's a hot day today.
Yeah, man.
Very hot day. Before we get to that, though, let me introduce the squad. Of course, that is Peter Ogburn, who you heard, who is sitting to my right. Hello, Peter.
Hey, Clinton.
How are you?
I'm good. Happy Friday, man.
Happy Friday to you, too. Across the glass, of course, is Elisa Murphy. Good morning, Lisa.
Hey, good morning. Good to have you here.
And on the phones is one Jamie Benson, who's answering your phone calls should you hit us up. And, of course, Cyprian Bolden is making us all look good, talking about the shirt that I mentioned earlier. It's a nice, light fabric.
It's a good long sleeve shirt.
Long sleeve.
It's a nice
weather.
spring
This
shirt.
is what I like to call a work shirt. It's hot outside.
Man.
It's moved to the point where, like, it's a cooler showers situation. Can't go for the bang out 90-degree showers. It's just not going to work. Because then you're sweating in the shower.
Showers guy?
Oh, I'm a cooler showers guy.
I'm a big time cool shower guy.
I love a cooler shower. It's not a cold shower.
No, you're right.
But it's like you got to tone it down to the point where it's more of a rinse than a steam.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at this morning.
Washington, D.C. gets maybe 6 perfect weather days a year.
Maybe.
And
they're interspersed throughout the year.
Yeah, they're never consecutive.
Never.
Like yesterday, you're right. It's a little warm out yesterday.
It's a little warm. Definitely a little warm out yesterday. So that's going on. And the other thing I did yesterday was I ate dinner outside. And so I live on H Street, which is, those who know anything about D.C., is one of the developing, gentrifying areas of the city, as many are at this point. And there's a place where, you know, a typical sidewalk cafe, you sit what would be parallel to the walking direction of those that are walking down the sidewalk.
Sure.
This particular location has a scenario where the tables face the sidewalk, so you are perpendicular to those.
You know what? Hard pass.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
You don't like that?
No.
Really?
Look at the human on display eating his food.
It is a little weird.
Like, I'm not okay with that.
It's an elevated seat, though, which is the thing. So you are above.
Like a stage?
Yeah, yes. Okay. Now that you put it that way, yes, it is very much like a stage. And so you are just simply facing those. And yes, people turn and look as if you aren't there, which is very, very awkward. Now that you've used that specific terminology, I feel very uncomfortable about the fact that I ate at this place last night.
I'm not against outdoor dining, but when you mention the setup that we all have in our minds, at least I've got my back to half the people. Right?
That's true.
But when you're staring out at everybody, It's
a little weird.
I
And
feel
at one
like I'd be
point,
on display.
At one point, these two people stopped and were looking like into the restaurant, and they were sort of, and I just waved my hand, and they were like, "Oh, sorry, my bad," and just sort of moved on. It was very awkward. That's a good point. Anyway, we got a lot to get to today, but first.
This is the Full
No worries.
Court Press.
Never going back to that place
Yeah.
again.
Right.
Glad I didn't mention it by name.
Whole Paycheck. Whole Paycheck is the name that Whole Foods Market has been come to be called by some people because they're so expensive, but they realize that they need to bring in a whole new group of shoppers, and so earlier this week they announced that they are going to be unveiling a smaller, cheaper brand of stores. They say that they want to aim at millennials.
Oh, God.
Which means,
don't get me started on that word.
I know.
Don't get me started.
This is their word, not
Okay,
mine.
okay.
I'm putting it out there. They haven't said how many they're going to do. They're going to make it or where it's going to be, but they said they're going to start working on them immediately. Is that more details are going to come in the fall? They say it's going to be a smaller store, a more streamlined store, and they said they will cater to a new generation of shoppers who are still interested in organic and natural foods, but want a different shopping experience.
That's a smart move. They should make all their stores like that instead of just one for millennials. That seems to be you should just change your entire business model.
While the Avengers Age of Ultron continues to dominate at the box office, yesterday it was announced that the next Avengers movie, the Infinity War Parts 1 and 2, are going to be shot exclusively with IMAX cameras.
Wow.
Big step. Now, the directors, Anthony and Joe Russo, who are directing the movies, say that they have these brand new IMAX cameras that are lighter than the originals and easier to operate, but still delivering on the quality. They said that the directors are also doing this next Captain America movie. There'll be 15 minutes of footage that are shot with these cameras in the new Captain America movie as well. So, whole new way to shoot these.
How does CGI work within the IMAX universe?
It's a scam.
That's a good question.
It's a scam. I mean, like there's all this 3D and CGI, which I'm not. I'm kind of anti 3D, but the CGI stuff, whatever, it's gotten pretty good these days. But you can tell when you see it on an IMAX screen, that it's really CGI'd up.
My vision is not good enough to really tell the difference at this point, quite honestly.
Right.
So, like, if the movie sucks, I don't care how good it looks. It is what it is.
And last month in San Antonio, Texas, a grandmother by the name of Cynthia Rodriguez went to the gas station and bought herself a Nature Valley granola bar. We've all seen those little oats and honey granola bars.
The
right?
green labels.
That's it. Those are the ones.
Shiny.
Well, she found something else inside of it. It was a little baggie that was sealed up inside the granola bar that was filled with white powder. Now, she wasn't sure what it was, so she called the company. And the company said, you should probably call the police just to see what it was. They tested it for heroin, no luck, but they tested it for cocaine.
Oh, wow.
And according to the police, they said that it was high-quality cocaine. A little baggie of the shug right there inside the granola bar.
So we like to call a balanced breakfast in some parts of America.
Your daily grains.
I'm kidding. Wow.
Yeah, that's a great breakfast if you need to walk like 200 miles before you go to work.
Unless you got to go climb a mountain. Wow. Man.
How does granola bar do so much energy?
Man, all right, San Antonio, what a place. So, look, we're sort of smoking and joking here a little bit on the show, but what's going on to the north of us a couple miles has been a very serious situation that has unfolded in front of the nation for the last couple weeks. We all know the situation about Freddie Gray. He died in police custody in Baltimore. There have been a lot of characters that have come out of this situation between the mayor of Baltimore, the governor of Maryland. All of these people have been thrust into the national spotlight. And this situation is different from a lot of these other ones. I delineate the Baltimore scenario for a couple different reasons. Number one, unlike Ferguson or let's just say North Charleston, Peter, or any of these other places, Baltimore is a place that has a very specific national identity that I think a lot of people know, or at least they have an idea in their mind of what they think that they know about Baltimore. It's not as if this is some place that nobody had ever heard of before this sort of light was shined upon them. So the way that they're coming at this from a PR standpoint is a very different thing than a lot of other places. You've got quite frankly, you've got to take fans of The Wire kind of seriously when it comes to the national identity of what Baltimore is. You've got sports fans that are, well understanding of what's going on there with the Orioles and the Ravens. And then you've got people who simply understand it as another American shipping city that has gone under as various companies have fled this nation in terms of jobs. So this isn't just some sort of outcrop of another city. I mean, we're talking about West Baltimore, which is one of the hardest core urban epicenters as far as all of the typical things that are the plight of black folks of a certain generation. And so Baltimore is no joke. I mean, it's not just the incident. It's where you're looking at it. You can't just say, oh, that's some other place. Yeah. It is a legitimate American city that a lot of people know a lot of things about. And so I want to get a lot of people's thoughts, but Peter, I know you guys have talked about it a little bit on the show here, but where are things in your opinion as we stand with the situation and the denouement, if you will, of what's happening with the Freddie Gray circumstance?
So when the Freddie Gray story came out, my first reaction was, this is not going to end well in Baltimore because, for a lot of the reasons you just mentioned, it's a lot different than any of the other scenarios that we've ever seen. and the longer that this was dragging out, the more I was going, this is all gonna come to a head.
Yeah.
Because we now know how to shut this down, as we saw in pretty much North Charleston, and that's it. You shut it down quickly. You see it happen, you fire the police officer involved, you charge him with murder, you immediately demand body cameras. They got on top of that in South Carolina, of all places.
Yeah. Well.
But the longer that this went on, I was thinking people of Baltimore are going to just have enough, because you saw, as I did, I'm sure everybody did, all the jokes made about The Wire, right? There was a lot of Wire references going on. Some of them were goofy, but a lot of them were really quite serious. And if you don't know the city, that's a really good insight as to how effed up things are in Baltimore. I mean, it's a mess.
It's true, and I remember
it's a mess.
A lot of people like The Wire. They say it's a great storytelling device, and it's just a great American television show. I never watched The Wire.
Okay.
The reason I never watched The Wire is because it wasn't very entertaining to me. As somebody that grew up in the 80s and 90s in D.C., when that sort of level of crime and that sort of level of drug activity affecting everyday life, and it's not to say that my life was so bad, but, I got family members. I lived in the city. I mean, I know, what goes on, and that kind of stuff, to me, as entertaining as it is on one level, it was very difficult for me to really get into at a certain age in my life when that show was out. Yeah. It would be interesting to revisit that now, to me, as more of a grown man, quite frankly, and what sort of themes are really still important. But I got a lot of friends who were like, it becomes to the point where it's tough to make jokes about that show now because you realize how serious the scenario is with the police department there. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377.
One of the things that struck me during this whole conversation about Baltimore was when people flocked there to cover it, reporters flocked there to cover it, they go, wow, look at the blight on Baltimore. There are boarded up houses everywhere.
That's Baltimore.
This is crazy.
That's what it looks like.
How did this happen? It's been like that for decades.
Exactly. When you redline black folks out of the ability to have housing that doesn't require them to pay through the nose, and jobs move out of there tenfold at a time every single time a company shows up, you end up with that kind of situation. There's nothing new about what happened in Baltimore remotely, and a lot of people sort of expose their ignorance about what's happening in that city. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Want to get your thoughts on a couple things. Number one, do you think anything will come of a Department of Justice federal probe? We've got a situation where the police chief in Baltimore says they'd welcome a probe. The mayor says they'd welcome a probe from the DOJ. And you got to wonder, with all of the issues that exist in that city and in this country, is something as simple as a Department of Justice probe going to really do anything? And beyond that, what do you think of State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby? She got up on that stage and had one of the most incredible moments I've seen in a really long time with the way that she addressed that scenario, with the level of cultural competence that she had, in addition to the level of obvious competency she had in doing her own job. She handled it well as a human, not just as a prosecutor. It was a great moment, in my opinion. If you haven't seen that, that's 21 minutes, 21 seconds of your life. You will want to repeat.
Do not miss it.
You will want to do that.
It's my favorite new TV show.
It's great. So I want to get your thoughts here. 866-55-PRESS, 888-557-7377. My name is Clinton Yates. I'm a columnist at the Washington Post, and I'm filling in for Bill Press on a Friday, and I'm wearing shorts, and I'm wearing sneakers, but you can't see that because this is the radio.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Silicon Valley's Santa Clara County is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The Jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see, and you have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi, have you ever heard of a place called the Jungle?
Sorry?
A place called the Jungle, have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water.
We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. We went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law. So we could smoke dope all day in the open. The dope dealers ain't scared because they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name is Clinton Yates. I am a columnist at the Washington Post, filling in for Bill here on a Friday. We're talking about Baltimore, trying to get your phone calls, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Obviously a very, not tense anymore, but an unfortunate scenario that is unfolding before our eyes because, look, here's the bottom line is that Baltimore could be anywhere in the country. It's a situation where I think there's something people don't understand about the way the policing works in a lot of urban epicenters in America. People have a lot of trouble drawing the line between, and yes, we will go back this far, drawing the line between slavery, Reconstruction, and policing. And you say, look, there were literally slave patrols that existed in a lot of these cities where freedmen and freed women were allowed to live because they did not want slave populations hiding amongst those who were allowed to be free. So the people who lived on their own were literally patrolled by divisions that were instituted to make sure that everything they were doing was understood and was known. The current United States penal system did not exist in its form until slavery ended because people didn't think they were going to be able to keep control of other people. So you can say what you want about the direct level of sort of racism and how that plays into every single decision that every single officer makes. But the bottom line is that it's rooted in a notion that involves anti-blackness on some level, white supremacy on another level, but more specifically, keeping people in line based upon how they look and where they live. And that's an undeniable fact. And so when you look at a scenario like Baltimore, in which redlining procedures, which is the process by which banks and actual government agencies allowed certain people to live in certain places, how the police structure took hold in that city is not separate from that. It is not a coincidence that in East and West Baltimore, where the most African Americans live in that city, are the highest, most viciously policed places. This is not, some miraculous level of rocket science. This is a basic part of how humans have developed in the last 300, 250 years in this country, where things have gone. So when you try to understand frustrations, when you try to understand why people throw bricks, why people are standing on the street, of course, violence is not an answer, but it's also something that if you were held in that position for that long and your generations of folks were systematically denied opportunities, things like lead checks going out because they're painting houses with illegal paint now, but the effects of which aren't known. You have to be able to understand the level of frustration that exists for a lot of people in this country. It isn't just a matter of, rioting won't solve anything, or, maybe if you weren't doing anything wrong, you shouldn't have run from the police. It is a much, much deeper sentiment to that. And I say that not only as a journalist, I say that as a black man that grew up in this country and in a city where the police were an ever-present force in your life, no matter what walk of life you came from. It's not so simple as to simply write off anyone who shows out when it comes to how they behave in front of the police. It is a simple fact of being a black person in America that it is not easy to live when you are not given the same opportunities as everybody else. We're going to talk a little bit more about this when we get back, because
this is an important thing to talk about. This is a very important thing to talk about, because even in the early stages of this Freddie Gray story, they're going, well, you look at his record.
That's so tangential to the point here.
Right.
Look up something called rough rides and understand where that comes from, why people do that. It's because the systems of correction in this country is not about correcting anything. It's about keeping people down so that they can't hurt others. Turns out that's actually the most hurtful thing in the world.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? You gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir And I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earth-alleluia.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
And my name is Clinton Yates. I'm a columnist at the Washington Post, filling in for Bill here on a Friday. I want to remind you that if you want to listen to the show other than somewhere on your radio dial, you can check out the iHeartRadio app or using the TuneIn app on the Progressive Voices channel. Of course, there are podcasts, and you can check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. And the Twitter box is always popping at BP Show. Talking about Baltimore here this morning. And, the latest is, sort of beyond the deep-rooted underpinnings of obviously what's going on in Baltimore. The latest is that some sources have told CNN that police are finding different things than State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby when it comes to the investigation against the different police officers involved in the Freddie Gray case. There's also been talk of the Justice Department launching a federal probe. The police chief in Baltimore, as well as the mayor of Baltimore, have said that they welcome that. So if you have any thoughts on that, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. we're certainly welcome to take your phone calls. But I want to get to something that kind of a controversial figure at this point, who is Ben Carson, who, in the presidential discussion has been kind of taken, I'd say half seriously in terms of
I think that's generous, but yeah.
whether or not, he's got a real shot at sort of getting anywhere with this. But he also worked in Baltimore for a long time. I mean, Ben Carson is, although a lot of his views out there, not entirely a completely ridiculous person at this point, maybe. He has some interesting thoughts on what he felt about Baltimore, at least.
Again, I want to go back to what is really happening. People, I feel, have lost a significant degree of hope. And, they see an opportunity to loot, to fill their pockets, and they don't feel like they're going to get that opportunity in a legitimate way. Those kinds of people are very easy to manipulate. What we need to do is bring real hope back and do the kinds of things that actually allow people to be elevated out of a dependent and dismal situation and partake of the American dream.
Listen, that is as astute of a comment as I've ever heard from Ben Carson, and he's exactly right.
Yeah.
I'm not up here to sort of extol his virtues overall as a human being, but that analysis of the scenario is exactly correct.
Spot on. I'm stunned because I'd like to hear the president say some stuff like that.
Right.
Not that he's been bad on this necessarily, but I mean that is so spot on.
Yeah, no.
Sums up what's going on.
Yeah, and I wrote a story last week, and I talked to two college students who were competing that weekend. They both were from Baltimore, and they were going to school in Baltimore. And they were sort of from very separate sort of backgrounds. One was a young man who went to a Catholic school in the city, and he ran track at he runs track at UMBC. They were both seniors, and he talked about it. He said, "Look, this scenario between police tensions and the people is not something that is lost on me. And this is a young man who wasn't necessarily a part of this in terms of his upbringing, but they're doing stuff like they've got to watch these looters while they're coming back from practice in the locker room. You know what I mean? He's got to talk to his teammates about stuff like this. And it's just really been interesting to see how a certain generation, a younger generation, those who are really in the throes of this are really, really dealing with this scenario. I talked to another young woman. She was a basketball player at Morgan State. She was from West Baltimore. And she said she had to have a sit down with her teammates and tell them, like, look, I don't condone violence, but I understand where a lot of these people are coming from. And they said it was a real growing moment for their team because they got to share sort of where a lot of this sort of rage and a lot of this anger existed and where it was manifesting itself from. And she made one interesting point that made a lot of sense to me. She said, to a lot of people, Baltimore is the roughest place they've ever been. And that's completely understandable. And I don't think a lot of people understand that Baltimore is not just crab cakes and baseball. Football and crab cakes or whatever they say in Wedding Crashers is not all that it is. And I think that reality coming to a head has been something that a lot of people of a certain ilk weren't really necessarily ready to deal with.
Baltimore is wonderful. You got the aquarium right there. You go see a game, go see the doggone O's.
Exactly. Go to
you
Pickles.
Walk around that inner harbor.
Yeah.
I tried to do Massachusetts there.
Right. No, but yeah, you're right. And so
Baltimore is great.
The people's image of Baltimore as Charm City is one thing, but Carson had something else to say, which was about how Marilyn Mosby was dealing with the situation.
Well, I certainly recognize the fact that there is something that went wrong. Somebody did something inappropriate, and therefore she understood, I believe, that she was sitting on a powder keg and needed to do something to calm the situation down.
Who is this Ben Carson?
Right. What have you done with
what have you done with the real Ben Carson? Because, again, this is a solid point. As much as I happen to be a personal fan of what Mosby said in terms of addressing what was actually happening, the way she laid out all of the discussion about what actually went down in terms of what the officers did, the way she addressed the youth and the protesters in Baltimore, that was all great. But I think that there was some level of political pointage there that she played that Carson makes a good point on. Somebody had to say something. And that's where I think Baltimore, if you want to look at all these situations in little silos, in terms of Ferguson, in terms of North Charleston did pretty well with this, but like I said, North Charleston ain't Baltimore.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's an outcropping of a larger, of a sort of a smaller place with different issues. And so firing that guy, asking for body cameras is something that was kind of an easy move, even though it wasn't necessarily something they had to do. It was the smart move. But in Baltimore, for her to come out and do this, I think there were a lot of people that said, you know what? I feel better about this. Is getting a murder charge against a police officer ever going to be an easy thing to do in this country? Absolutely not. You know, it's probably going to be very difficult to prosecute anybody on any of this because the evidence is going to be shaky to a certain extent. But something happened, and I think that's where the largest level of relief was for most people in this country, is that somebody stood up and said something. Officers were taken off of the street, and people finally felt like they had some level of, accountability is sort of the wrong word because you're never really going to be that accountable when a person lost their life when they were simply in police custody. But there was some level of relief is such an odd word to use in this scenario because again there was a death, but I really got to feel that a lot of people in Baltimore for the first time probably felt heard in a way that they hadn't in generations, literally.
That to me is so important because we took calls all throughout the situation, right? And when we were talking about the coverage and how these looters and protesters and people who did get violent were being called thugs and all this stuff, right? So we got calls from people saying, you don't understand. We have been waiting for something.
Yeah.
Something. It's been, like, at the time, it had been, 2 weeks? 2 weeks since this man died at the hands of police, and they got nothing. The citizens there got nothing.
Yeah.
No answers, nothing to calm them, nothing to assure them that everything was okay. Nada, not a drop. And so when you have someone like Mosby come out and say,
feels good.
We hear you. I hear you. We're going to get this sorted out.
Yeah, feels good.
Yeah.
We've got somebody else whose thoughts, one of my favorite rappers. That's a lie. But a guy whose music entertained many of us through the younger parts of our lives. Mr. Ja Rule found himself on Fox News of all places discussing Baltimore. I wonder what Ja's thoughts are.
I think it's a very sad situation, what's going on in Baltimore. I don't. It's not just Baltimore. I think this is going on throughout the country, and with what's going on in our urban communities with the police. I think it just somebody needs to be the peacemaker to bring it all together to make things better on that front.
Yeah, Ja, I've always wondered what mid-2000s rappers thought about scenarios unfolding across the nation with police brutality. It's really,
we need to get Mace on record right now.
Mace,
I feel better already.
I'd like to know what's happening with Mace. There's a couple other guys. DMX, I wouldn't mind hearing his thoughts on the matter.
I know he has thoughts
I'm sure he does. But, that, of course, Ja being on any TV show reminds us of and we're going to go out on this segment on this, one of the greatest clips of all time from the legendary comedian and D.C. native Dave Chappelle.
Stop worshiping celebrities so much. Just don't listen, pay attention. I remember right around September 11th, Ja Rule was on MTV. That's what they said. They said, we got Ja Rule on the phone. Let's see what Ja's thoughts are on this tragedy. Who gives a f*** what Ja Rule thinks at a time like this, nigga? This is ridiculous. I don't want to dance. I'm scared to death. I want some answers that Ja Rule might not have right now. I think when bad happens to me, I'll be in the crib like, oh my God, this is terrible. Could somebody please find Ja Rule, get hold of this mother so I can make sense of all this. Where is Ja? Guide me, Ja Rule.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Right now, big banking, software, pharmaceutical, and tobacco corporations are lobbying governments from 12 countries to negotiate the dirtiest deal you've never heard of. There's a reason you haven't heard of the TPP or Trans-Pacific Partnership. There are some major corporations and government officials that don't want you to know what's in the deal. For one, our food safety standards, environmental protections, and local labor laws could all be threatened under the TPP. We could all be forced to pay significantly more for the medicines we need. And you could be fined or even sent to jail for downloading copyrighted content on the internet. How will they know if you do it? Because your internet service providers could be required to watch your online activity. But that's not the scariest part. The TPP gives corporations the power to sue our government in secret tribunals over any law or regulation they claim affects their expected future profits. Don't believe it? It's already happening. Recently, after our government said an American pharma corporation's drug price-raising patents were not legit, the firm sued Canadian taxpayers for a staggering $500 million. And a U.S. fracking company sued us when the Quebec government put a moratorium on shale gas development to study its impacts. These deals will stop us from making our own common sense laws for fear of lawsuits. Thankfully, not everyone is willing to sign on the dotted line just yet. In fact, most government officials still have no idea what they're even signing on to, for good reason. In the U.S., Democrats and Republicans alike are uniting to oppose a fast tracking of the TPP, demanding open debates and negotiations instead. Elected officials in Canada and everywhere should be doing this, and it's our job to make sure they start showing some backbone. Here's the deal. Without a strong public outcry, politicians will only hear the concerns of multinational corporations. And once the TPP is signed, it's here forever. There's no expiration date and no separation clause. This dirty deal has been deliberately branded as a free trade agreement. It is anything but free for people like you and me. And it's not really about trade. It could cost us our internet freedom, labor rights, access to affordable medicine, the safety of our food, and protections that keep our water and air clean. Nobody wants to be struck with a backroom deal we don't want and never voted for. Find out more, speak up, and spread the word.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name is Clinton Yates. I'm a columnist for the Washington Post, and I'm filling in for Bill Press here on a Friday. On the line, we have features editor for The Nation and former editorial director of Colorlines, Wright. You can find him on Twitter at Kai_Wright. And, of course, his work is online at thenation.com. Good morning, Kai.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm pretty well. How are you?
I'm good. So you wrote a piece called Black America's Lost Generation Speaks Up. It's a tremendous look at the overall look at a certain crop of individuals, if you will, who fall into this rubric of those that have been voiceless up until this point. There were a couple of phrases and sentences that you said that I thought spoke very much to a lot of different things. I want to get started with this one, this sentence. That sentiment plunged the family into a trick bag of morality that black people routinely encounter when they brush up against the criminal justice system, in reference to the kid that is the image of him standing on top of the hood of a car, breaking a window. Can you get a little bit further into sort of what you meant by that?
Well, I mean, there's this no-win scenario that you face, frankly, in poverty in general, but certainly when you're an African American that comes up against criminal justice. You know, I mean, Alan Bullock, he became the face of the riot in some ways because he was on the cover of the Baltimore Sun smashing this windshield, and his parents wanted to do what they said, quote, was the right thing, and they urged him to turn himself in. Well, it turns out he is held on a $500,000 bail, while the bail for the officers charged in Freddie Gray's murder tops out at $350,000, and I think you get a good sense of the difference between property and black life, and how it's valued in the criminal justice system, and you get a good sense of how difficult it is just to figure out what's a way forward in a family like Alan Bullock's. Where they're trying to do the right thing, but they're operating in a system where there is no right thing. It's not built for them.
I thought your usage of the term lost generation was interesting because it's, on a certain level, there are obviously multiple lost generations of Black America, but please do describe to the listeners what you specifically meant by this particular lost generation.
We are at a uniquely acute point in the economic crisis in Black America. So Freddie Gray and his peers who were rioting have never been alive when Black America wasn't in a recession. Most Black neighborhoods never recovered from the 2001 recession. The jobs numbers, even if you got them back down to, if you got unemployment back down to the pre-2008 crash level in Black America, it would still be higher than it was in 2001. So we've been looking at 15 years of crisis. The country has been in recession twice and recovered from it twice, and places like West Baltimore have never caught up. And so that kind of lifelong crisis with 4 in 10 Black children living in poverty today, 4 in 10, that's the national number. You look in some places it's higher than that. That kind of lifelong crisis is going to come home to roost, to use a famous phrase. And I think we see it in places like Baltimore, these flashpoints that we're finding, and we will continue to see in cities around the country. They're explained by many things, but one of them is that we've left a bunch of neighborhoods and a bunch of young people to just language in poverty, and that's unsustainable. That's unsustainable, and we're going to see the results of it.
We're talking with features editor for The Nation, Kai Wright, here on the Bill Press Show. I'm Clinton Yates filling in for Bill. How do you think that those specific numbers then affect the Black Lives Matter movement? I don't think people can necessarily. I think people are having a lot of trouble connecting. Hey, look, there are a lot of frustrated poor people to the situation with police brutality, to the violence, to the looting.
Yeah, I mean, I think how it affects the Black Lives Matter movement is this is what the movement grows up out of, and that we see all of this sort of dispersed grassroots organizing that's happening. We saw it in Ferguson. And in fact, we see it in Baltimore. While we focus on this moment of riot, there is an enormous amount of actual organizing happening as well. We see it in New York. We see it in cities around the country. And I think one of the big questions for the 2016 election is going to be what kind of political force that becomes. How do those organizers, and many of them young, how do they come together to take these from just sort of moments of protest in the streets and turn those into a political force that impacts the 2016 elections, whether it's about candidates or not, but to make that voice heard. And I think we're already seeing it. I mean, the Hillary Clinton speech following Baltimore was basically reading the Black Lives Matter playbook, and it was impossible to imagine her making that speech even a year ago.
All right. Well, thank you, Kai.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. It's Kai Wright again. He's features editor for The Nation and former editorial director of Colorlines. I urge you to go read his piece, Black America's Lost Generation Speaks Up. It talks very directly about the young people that you are seeing on your television that some of you might be calling thugs that are in fact human beings just like the rest of us. I'm Clinton Yates. I'm filling in for Bill Press. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
Crim Advisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada. What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that crimadvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. crimadvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
crimadvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name is Clinton Yates. I'm a columnist at the Washington Post, filling in for Bill here. Just wrapping up this Baltimore talk that we've had. Got a couple of quick things I want to get to. If you follow me on Twitter, my handle is @Clinton Yates. I just tweeted out a story by Jacqueline Cantor of Penn Live. It's called Baltimore Teens Try to Focus on Baseball Amid Their City's Tensions. It's a great story about the Frederick Douglass High School baseball team and how they're dealing with sort of the unrest. Their home field was used as a staging place for some of the military units that were there and the National Guard units that were there. So you got guys with AR-15 standing on top of your dugout after baseball practice. That's a little bit weird. But speaking of baseball, they played a game in front of nobody in Baltimore last week. And nobody was there, but you know who was there? I was there.
Nice.
Of course I was there. So if you're watching either on Free Speech or TawkrTV, this is my actual press credential from that ball game. And it was a little spooky.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It was a little spooky because the concourse was closed. They didn't just let people sit wherever you wanted. So to be clear, you had to be in the press box. It wasn't like there were people roaming the aisles, which would have been awesome, by the way. There were scouts that were in the seats, but that was it. And there was a good group of people that gathered outside the left field fence because people in Baltimore don't have anything better to do. But, you know, went around town. A lot of the bar owners were real bummed. I don't think it was the right decision.
I agree with you.
I think that moving the game was enough. And a buddy of mine, he said, you know what they should have done? They should have let everybody who works there go to a game for free and just watch the O's play. And I was like, that, my friend, would have been brilliant. But yeah, so when your friends tell you about the ghost game that nobody was at, tell them they're wrong because I was there. I'm Clinton Yates.
This is The Bill Press Show.
just this month my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, we come to work. That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for. I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough, they adapt, but only can do so much when your politicians are ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not gonna let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or where. We're gonna fight to the bitter end. Detroit gonna survive.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
To me, kiddos, Clinton Yates. I'm a columnist at the Washington Post, filling in for Bill here on Friday, May 8th, 2015. I want to thank everybody for tuning into the program. You might be watching us live on Free Speech TV or TawkrTV. Of course, Free Speech TV is on DirecTV and Dish, and TawkrTV is at youtube.com/TawkrTV. If you want to give us a phone call, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377 is the number. We're always on the Twitter box at BP Show. It's how we communicate with a lot of you throughout the program. And, of course, you could just be listening on any of your progressive talk radio stations across the nation. That's cool, too. Get them some ratings. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. Of course, to my right is one Peter Ogburn. How are you today, Peter?
Good, man.
Yeah?
Happy weekend.
Happy weekend. It's a little warmer in the district than it is normally. Nothing wrong with that. It means summer is coming. Elisa Murphy's across the glass on the boards. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
I am well. And of course,
it's Friday.
It is Friday. That's exciting. Jamie Benson is screening your phone calls if you give us a ring. And of course, Cyprian Bolding is making us all look good on the cameras. So there's a new trend hitting the streets, Peter.
Yeah, I'm into this one.
You're into this one.
I liked it. I like where you're going.
You're into this one. We have the televisions on here in the studios. Here on Capitol Hill, where we tape this program from. And the words dad bod appeared on the screen. For those of you who don't know what dad bod is, it's also just known as what normal people look like. But for whatever reason, this has become back in style.
I'm all in, man. Are you kidding me?
Beaming.
My time has come.
From ear to ear.
This is my golden age.
Explain to me this dad bod phenomenon.
All right, so there have been pieces written on it everywhere. You've probably seen them online. But it all started with a woman, a student at Clemson University, who wrote this big piece about the dad bod.
Right.
And was all about unrealistic expectations for beauty and how, men are held to a high standard of having this
right.
hard six-pack ab
Things
situation.
are so tough for men these days.
Oh, yeah, look.
As it turns out.
Yeah, cry from me.
Right.
But that the dad bod is attractive to plenty of women. And the dad bod meaning, look, you're looking at it.
Yeah.
It's a dad bod. All right?
TawkrTV right there.
Yeah, it's
dad bod.
It's a dad bod. You're not going to bounce any quarters off of my abs.
No.
Or anything like that.
No.
It's
not unless you're in some weird stuff.
I drink too much beer.
Right.
I eat too much.
You exercise.
I exercise.
But it's not like...
It's not that you're a slob.
Right.
It's not that you just have given up.
Right.
But that, you're a dad. You got things going on.
Things going on.
You can't go rage at CrossFit for 3 hours.
No. Elisa, what are your thoughts on dad bod?
It's interesting. I hope, I know it exists. I don't think it should catch on like a phenomenon where people should go actively trying to pursue
You let me
a
have
dad
my
bod.
moment. We're at peak dad bod right
Peter,
now, and I want it to
forget.
get better.
What do you call your wife again? She's army fit.
Oh, she's
so.
prison.
How does your wife fit in all this time?
She's prison fit. Look, dad bods are in, man.
He's like, I'm not going to kill your moment here.
Don't take away from. Don't you buzzkill.
But I will say this. Magic Mike XXL is coming out soon, and ain't gonna be no dad bods.
The dad bod edition.
That ain't gonna be. No, that's a zero dad bod situation right there.
Yeah.
Did I hear Jada Pinkett is going to be in that?
Which means I am going to see that movie in the movie theater.
No kidding.
Yes, I'm secure enough to go see Magic Mike in the movie theater. Anyway, we got a lot of important stuff to talk about, but first.
This is the Full Court Press.
I'm feeling pretty good now.
He's got the legs back in the air.
My moment.
He's just good.
I was basking in the dad bod moment, man. It's a little work now. All right, let's go to Ohio. We've been talking about Ginny's Splendid Ice Cream and their listeria outbreak. They shut it down. They shut down operation altogether of all of their stores, all of the production because of the listeria outbreak. And they have, until yesterday, had not been able to locate the source of the listeria outbreak. But yesterday they announced they found it. They found what it was. It came from Ohio, where there was a ice cream packer that was infected with listeria machine. A machine had the
Where in
listeria
Ohio?
on it.
Is that clear?
I will find out.
No worries.
I'll find it for you.
Just wondering if there's a place I can make
It just
fun
says the company's Ohio production facility.
Gotcha. Okay.
This has, by the way, cost them $2.5 million already.
Wow.
Because they're throwing away
gotta
ice
dump
cream.
everything.
They're not making any money from their stores, and so they also said that they are investing $200,000 towards change to ensure that this will never happen again.
That's really scary, man.
Yeah, they still say that there's no way to know how exactly it got there, but they're just happy that they found it and they can get rid of it. And
as long as they're not selling that tainted product half price out of the back,
especially when it's on the cusp of ice cream season. Here we go.
It's very interesting what they decided to do. They put out a statement. They're taking all of their ice cream and they're converting it into energy. Like all that old ice cream that they can't sell, they're like using.
What? I don't even understand what that means.
So they're taking it and they're like incinerating it or putting it through the process to like convert it into actual energy, the heat from it and getting rid of it.
Okay,
all of this stuff. So they're trying to do some positive stuff with it.
Kind of like a dad bod does it.
Dad bod does it. Dad bod pretty upset about this ice cream shortage. I speak for dad bods everywhere.
You speak for dad.
I speak for the dad bod.
The United Nation of dad bod.
Yeah,
You're beautiful, Peter.
I feel like I can sit on that throne. We might see Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao in the same ring as early as as early as September, but not in the circumstances that we are thinking of. Floyd Mayweather was talking to Stephen A. Smith.
Oh, great.
And he told Stephen A. that he has a fight in September, which we knew, and he said he'd be willing to offer Manny Pacquiao a chance to fight on the undercard.
Wow.
Which is just
savage. Look, I don't want to get too far off on a tangent about Floyd Mayweather and Stephen A. Smith and the entire state of boxing, but I don't really have time for this anymore. I don't love boxing, but the scumbaggery has reached a level. It's plateaued for me in terms of how. I mean, I can't even really take anybody seriously in the boxing world as like a human, never mind as like an athlete or a promoter or whatever, because if you look at how that fight ended up going down and all the things that Vegas and Nevada had to do to make sure that Mayweather got that license after that whole domestic violence situation went down, it is despicable on
terrible.
Every single level.
Horrible.
Anyway.
And yesterday I told you the story of Danielle Perez from Los Angeles. She was on The Price is Right, and she won a sauna, a Nike fitness band, an iPad, and a treadmill. Problem is, she was on the show in a wheelchair because she lost her legs in an accident in 2004. She had a phenomenal attitude about the whole thing and made several very funny jokes about it on Twitter. But she joined Jimmy Kimmel last night, and Jimmy Kimmel said he felt so bad for her, even though she won all this stuff. He wanted to see her get a little bit more. He told her he's sending her on a cruise which is wheelchair accessible.
Nice.
And
Okay.
made sure that she's going to have all the accommodations that she needs in her wheelchair. So Jimmy Kimmel stepping up, making sure she got a very, very big prize.
Good for him. Kimmel's cool. Kimmel
I like
also
Kimmel.
folled Manny Pacquiao into the ring after that fight, which was a hilarious bit.
That
Did you
was
see that?
insane.
I didn't know what was going on. That guy's all over the place. Good for him. All right, thanks, Peter. So, moving things into the more serious once again, we've got a story coming out of the NSA, the National Security Agency. Of course, you know, they're always in the news, and they have been ever since the Patriot Act and this, that, and the third. But basically, a federal appeals court has ruled that the amount of spying that they're doing is illegal. They're collecting too much data. It is not really necessary within the context of the Patriot Act. I'm reading from a story here. It says Circuit Judge Gerald Reuters story. Pardon me. Circuit Judge Gerald Lynch wrote for a 3-judge panel that Section 215, which addresses the FBI's ability to gather business records, cannot be interpreted to have permitted the NSA to collect a staggering amount of phone records, contrary to claims by the Bush and Obama administrations. Now, look, we're obviously going to get a lot further into this right now, but I just want to get your thoughts. Do you think 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377, that this should be illegal? I mean, do you think that it's reasonable for the NSA to collect this amount of bulk data? There's been a lot of different sides on this. You know, various politicians have come out on their sides. I mean, this is an actual important issue, because when you think about what this nation is really about, a lot of people have very, very problematic thoughts about where the line of civil liberties is. Peter, I know that this is a big topic for you specifically.
Yeah.
But this doesn't just break down along, you know, sort of red and blue, right and left. This to me is more of a human concern. It's a little bit more than political. It's not just something that happens in the walls of Congress. So let us know what you think. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. An appeals court has decided that bulk data collection is illegal. What are your initial thoughts?
I think this is huge.
Yeah.
And I also think this is important to remember why we know this. And that is because of Edward Snowden.
Yeah.
And I know he's been demonized by a lot of people, probably unfairly, and he's been turned into a hero by a lot of people, also probably a little unfair.
Mm-hmm.
I think that at the end of the day, it's a good thing that we know some of the things that our government is up to. When you look at this ruling, it's clear that, like, him shedding some light on this program is a win for the American people.
Yeah.
What's been going on with us and what's been going on to the citizens of this country is not legal. It's not okay. You can't do it. A court found that to be the case. So now we know.
So this is, I wonder about this, though, because this is a situation where, I don't know that I necessarily come from the I don't care if you're watching me, I'm not committing any crimes school of thought. But there is a small part of me that feels like, not that I trust necessarily every single person involved with the government to do right with the information, but it's a hard line to draw. Where do you cut off what makes sense surveillance-wise? You know what I mean? Because this is a very real issue. And, I find myself agreeing with people who politically I otherwise have no remote affiliation with. And it's just a really fascinating thing. We got this clip here of let's go to Loretta Lynch and let's see what she had to say. Who's the new Attorney General about this decision that came down yesterday.
The department has, as you note, been operating under the new directives by the president with a view towards modifying the program to keep its efficacy but preserve privacy interests.
And that's the hard part there. Keeping the efficacy of the program, as in still having surveillance that makes sense for us from a security standpoint without making people feel like they're living in some sort of, Orwellian state. I think it's a difficult balance. And I wonder, Peter, how much this is going to be an issue in the race for the White House.
I don't want to give too much credit to Rand Paul. He's been all over this.
Yes.
And he's been right on this. Sorry, people who want to call and argue and fight about it because we always get them. But he's been right about this.
Yeah.
President Obama hasn't backed away from this. You know, I mean, this has only grown under his administration. I don't know how that's going to play out in 2016, but I think it's a big deal. I think people want to know what their next president is going to be doing in terms of surveillance and where their rights are going to be under that administration.
Yeah. All right. Give us a phone call, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Filling in for Bill here on a Friday, and when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the proverbial eye in the sky. I'm Clinton Yates.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
What's up, kiddos? I'm Clinton Yates. I'm a columnist at the Washington Post, filling in for Bill here on a Friday, talking about the NSA and the federal appeals court ruling that bulk data collection from that agency is simply illegal. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Like I said, drawing the line is hard because none of us are really security experts. We're just guys talking on microphones, but we're also human beings who live lives that involve interacting with other people. I don't necessarily particularly care if my phone calls are getting listened to, but I also want to know that they're doing more than just listening to people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't necessarily make me feel safer to know that everybody is being watched rather than the people that are designed to find people are actually doing their jobs better than just sitting around listening to random phone calls and looking at emails.
I mean, when you look at some of the interviews and some of the stuff that Edward Snowden has put out and the time after information came to light, this seems like a small thing, right? But like he acknowledges that, the NSA sees those naked pictures that you send to someone that you're with, right? Like they see those, they pass those around. Or not with.
Yeah.
But like they see those get passed around. That's not crazy.
No, I mean, right. And when these bro cultures, you know what I mean, that a lot of these sort of security agencies are kind of in, the potential for abuse is very much there. It's kind of a scary situation, but at the same time, what are you going to do? 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Joey, good morning.
Good morning, guys. I wouldn't be too worried about the security. They've bitten off so much. They have so much information that it would take them 400 years to sift through all the information they have stored. And I've been part of the government for half my life. We're not all that competent and clever. I wouldn't worry too much. They're chasing terrorists and people who are out to do harm to this country. They don't have the people and the good people to sift through all that information and worry about you as an individual.
Thank you for the phone call, Joey. Appreciate that. That's an interesting point, which is the economies of scale of all that data processing have got to be pretty high. I mean, what are they doing with all of this information to begin with? I mean, you can't have what is it? 1,000 monkeys typing on 1,000 typewriters can put out a Shakespeare piece or whatever that stupid turn of phrase is by the by.
Right.
You ever seen a monkey and a typewriter? Nothing close to typing is happening. But anyway, what are they going to do with? Maybe this is kind of sort of a really layman's sort of view on this, but like, I just don't understand what you do with all that data all the time, unless I don't know, unless there's just something I don't understand about this.
If you're going to run on this or have this be a part of your platform politically, that you want to keep this up, I think you need to explain to me what this has helped in the past. Like, what has this stopped? What is this? What data have we gathered that's made us safer?
Yeah.
Tell me that. Then I'll listen. I still don't like it.
It's a good question. Loretta Lynch, of course, the U.S. Attorney General, called it a vital tool in our national security arsenal. And, the president has said that we must be vigilant on terror threats and, surveillance is needed. Okay, sure. But, like I don't go to sleep feeling any safer because I think that the NSA might be listening to the guy next door's phone calls or reading my emails, to anybody. It's just, I don't know that the connectivity between what the NSA does, which all of this, of course, came about after 9/11 and the Patriot Act, the connectivity between what they do and what they feel the average resident in this country takes from it is really there. It's just really not. Anyway, when we get back, staff writer covering technology for The Hill, Julian Hattem, is here. We'll talk with him on The Bill Press Show. I'm Clinton Yates.
This is The Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. If I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name is Clinton Yates, filling in for Bill here on a Friday. I am a columnist at the Washington Post. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. To my left here is staff writer covering technology policy for The Hill, Julian Hattem. How are you, Julian?
Doing great. How you doing?
I'm well. You can
Happy
follow him.
Friday.
You too. You can follow him on Twitter at JMHattem. Peter?
Yes, indeed.
He's verified. So we're going to talk a little bit. That this
I don't
is
have verification.
A long-running joke.
It's good. No, it blew up my life when I got verification on Twitter. It changed my world.
We're talking, of course, NSA stuff, and for the basic layman who doesn't really understand what's going on with all these appeals and various courts that the rulings are going through, please just lay it out for us and break down what the latest is.
Sure. So the latest was yesterday. There was this big ruling in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals up in New York City. And essentially it ruled that one of these big controversial NSA programs, not all of them, but one of them, which collects phone metadata, which is not your actual phone conversations, but the numbers that you're dialing, how long your phone calls happened, and basically what you get on a phone bill if you look at your phone bill afterwards. It's the NSA collects that, but the court said that was illegal. It went outside of the bounds of the Patriot Act, which is the law that's supposed to have propped that up. And basically, it was the biggest court ruling, the biggest legal challenge ever to say, no, NSA, you're illegal. You've stepped way outside the bounds of the law. And essentially, you should not be authorized.
Now, as Peter has brought up, we wouldn't necessarily even know about this if it wasn't for Mr. Edward Snowden. Let's take a listen to what Obama had to say about his contributions to the matter back in February.
The Snowden disclosures were really harmful in terms of the trust between the government and many of these companies, in part because it had an impact on their bottom line.
So how intercorrelated are these things?
They're very intercorrelated. We wouldn't know about much of any of these programs without Snowden in the first place, which is 2 years ago. It's coming up on the anniversary. But meanwhile, he's still trapped in Moscow, still, essentially a fugitive from the U.S. And in the meantime, there's been a lot of opposition to what the NSA has been doing. And although there hasn't been much change from Congress, there's been some change at the administrative level from Obama, but not nearly as much as some folks would like to see. And that's made a lot of opposition among individuals around the country and internationally. And also, I think that clip he was speaking in Silicon Valley to a lot of tech companies that are super, super upset that a lot of people think that they are now agents, essentially, of the NSA, of the government.
This might be a stupid question, but is Edward Snowden ever going to step foot in America again?
Maybe, probably not.
Yeah.
So some folks have, he has had a lot of conversations. He's got some legal aid from the ACLU and some other folks that would like to make him come back. And there's been some thought that, maybe Obama on the way out the door, if things look better, could give him some sort of something.
That would be a miracle.
That would be a lot. Yeah,
I'm going to shut that down. I'm going to shut that down. That ain't going to happen.
That's not happening.
Yeah. But at the same time, Julian Assange has been in that embassy in London for years. There's some precedent where he could just kind of hang out ad infinitum, it looks like.
Wow. Section 215 of the Patriot Act is the big section that everybody's been talking about. Explain what that is and how that affects this scenario.
Sure. So that's the portion of the law that the government has said authorizes this phone metadata bulk collection. And basically what it does is it is written very broadly and allows the government to collect, quote, any tangible things that are, quote, relevant to a terrorism investigation. And the basic idea is that on a base level, people say that's a good idea to get records about who's staying in hotels, or if someone rents a car somewhere, you want to be able to collect those rental car records, which I think most people would say, okay, there should be some authorization to do that. But the government has used that and interpreted that to collect everyone's phone records. And that as the court ruled yesterday, is too far. And even Jim Sensenbrenner, the congressman, Republican from Wisconsin, who wrote the Patriot Act, says, no, that's not what we meant. This is beyond the bounds.
Right.
So it's important now because that section, along with two other sections, are set to expire at the end of the year. So now there's this fight in Congress over, whether to renew them, and if they will renew them, how to change them and what that will look like.
So that's the whole discussion about the clean bill and all this.
Exactly, yeah. Which Mitch McConnell and some other big hawkish Republicans have pushed for a clean reauthorization, which would basically say this law is fine as is, good to go. But folks on other sides of the issue, on both sides of the aisle, disagree. They either want to kill it entirely or have it changed with significant modifications.
We've got staff writer covering technology policy for The Hill, Julian Hattem, in here with us in studio at the Bill Press Show. Now, there is a sentence, I guess it's not a sentence, this is a clause, that is a little bit bothersome to me. I'm not a huge anti-surveillance guy, but something called the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, the secretive federal court overseeing government intelligence operations. That sounds like a bunch of dudes that are just like, Dr. Claw and Inspector Gadget, who are making decisions that frighten me. What is that?
Sure, and a lot of people think of it like that. So it is this secretive federal court. Most of their opinions are classified, and they essentially, their job is to watch over the nation's intelligence operations and say, it's legal, this is not legal, you can do this, you cannot do that. Except that, A, they meet in secret, most of their opinions are secret, and their rate of approving whatever the government wants is something like 95, 98%. So they are seen as a very big rubber stamp on whatever the government wants, and there's not much, there's no adversarial process, so there's no... Where in a normal court, there's two sides arguing the judge supposed to pick. In the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, called the FISC, that doesn't happen. There's just kind of the one side, and the thinking is that they said, "Oh, that's a good idea. Let's do that."
That even sounds like something out of a movie.
It's like a
do
James
we know
Bond.
how many people? Do we know how many people are even on this? Like, I am infinitely fascinated by the FISC at this point.
Sure. I mean, so there's a handful. I think it's 7, 8, or 9, and they rotate through. And there's a couple. But they're federal judges. They're appointed by the president, and they rotate through.
Yeah, scary stuff. So I mean, I don't know. Like, the NSA and the Patriot Act and. Excuse me while I espouse my opinion on this, but I'm in the host chair right now.
Yeah.
The NSA
Preach it.
and the Patriot Act, I think at this point, most Americans would say, you know what, we've reached, and Peter, I don't know your thoughts on this, we've reached a little far. Like, the likelihood of an attack along the lines of anything remotely close to the World Trade Center attacks, sure, I mean, it could happen, but I mean, I don't think the average person, and maybe this is just me living on the East Coast and living in a relatively liberal city, is walking around really concerned that somebody's trying to fly a plane into a building or necessarily trying to, I don't know, blow up a daycare, a federal building. I mean, obviously these are out there, but I mean, I wonder, like, because if you said now that we would be at this point after 9/11, I think people would have said, sure, maybe 5 years after, maybe 10 years after. But we're getting on 15 years after, and we're still doing this kind of stuff. Does this seem I mean, Peter.
This seems weird. I agree with your sentiment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's like, yo.
And this is something that we talked about a while back when we were looking at this story of the pilot who flew the plane into the French Alps.
Yeah.
Because we're still using the same outdated procedures for planes. I don't know that terror is driving the American people the way that it used to.
Yeah.
I think that there was a good long period of time where we got a lot of things done that weren't necessarily very good because people were motivated by fear and terror. And I think that we've adjusted and adapted and grown and evolved, but we haven't really put a lot of those things into place yet.
Yeah.
I don't think that we have to worry as much about a plane flying into a large building. I do think there are plenty of people out there who want to hurt us. But yeah, I agree with your sentiment. Absolutely.
All right. Well, go ahead.
I think it's one of these institutional things too, where it's easy to build something up, especially this big bureaucratic, secret bureaucratic state. But as the focus gets away and as people are less afraid of terrorism, it gets a lot harder to dismantle that and to change it. Which I think means that these remnants of 2001, 2002 are still very strong and very going on.
It's a very good point. He's Julian Hattem. He's a staff writer covering technology policy for The Hill. And when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more about how this NSA situation is going to affect the race for the White House in 2016, because everybody who's got their hat in the ring is talking about it. So people do in Washington. I'm Clinton Yates. I'm filling in for Bill Press on a Friday.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans, because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Thank you all for joining us. My name is Clinton Yates. I'm a columnist at the Washington Post, filling in for Bill here on a Friday. In studio with us is Julian Hattem from The Hill. He covers technology policy. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Well, you can follow him on Twitter at JMHattem. So the NSA situation is what we've been talking about, and obviously a lot of different people have been weighing in. Rand Paul, of all people, is looking real good in this scenario because this has been a big part of his platform. How much do you think this is really going to affect the race for the White House?
I mean, well, it's still early, of course, right? I mean, the actual race is still kind of going on. But I think it's a great opportunity for Republicans in particular kind of differentiate themselves. There's a big split within the Republican Party over this issue. As you said, you've got the Rand Pauls on the one side and Ted Cruz, to a lesser extent, really critical of the NSA. Rand Paul filed a lawsuit against Obama over the NSA last year, saying it was unconstitutional.
How'd that go?
It's so far, it's still sticking around. Essentially, the court said whatever. I mean, it was seen as a kind of somewhat of a publicity stunt, but still, he's taken this seriously. Actually, this is a total side note, but he sells on his website little piece of plastic that you can put above your little webcam on top of your microphone or on top of your laptop to say, it's like an NSA blocker. Anyway, so he's on the one side. And then the other side of the issue, there's the Marco Rubios, to a lesser extent the Chris Christies of the world, who said, no, it's certainly Lindsey Graham, who said these things are constitutional, and if we get rid of them, there will be another 9/11, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of differentiation there, I guess.
So what about the blue side, though?
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what Hillary Clinton says about this.
So she has been largely silent for a while on this. As with most things, there's this image of her of kind of being walled off, not weighing in too much. Although yesterday, in the wake of this big court decision, she did give somewhat of a policy statement. She supported this NSA reform bill in Congress called the USA Freedom Act, which would end the bulk collection of phone records, but change some other things, but not address some of the more stronger issues of the NSA, like tapping of people's like internet lines and stuff like that. But I mean, so she has weighed in a little bit, but it's not been a huge issue for her.
Right. She hasn't made it a big part of her platform. I want to go to this clip from Marco Rubio, who is very far on what I would call the alarmist scale of things.
I hope that I'm wrong, but one day there will be an attack that's successful. And the first question out of everyone's mouth is going to be, why didn't we know about it? And the answer better not be because this Congress failed to authorize a program that might have helped us know about it.
First of all, I don't like his tone of voice in that at all. He's implying that he wants something to happen. And he's not implying that, but he's got this air of, don't make me say I told you so, just for the sake of my own political
I can't wait to tell you
points.
I told you
like,
so.
That is frightening to me.
Yeah.
You know, and look, again, do I believe that there are people that want to harm the very natural and sort of what we believe to be our sort of core beliefs in the United States of America? Sure. But I also know that there's a lot of people that are walking around doing that every day who aren't foreign terrorists, you know what I mean? And guys like Rubio stirring up fear are not helping the cause.
It's kind of like, where does it stop with the NSA stuff, right? So you got the NSA that are looking, and they say that their goal is to shut down terrorist activities. But what if the monitor of these phone calls could break up a bank robbery here in America, or a drug deal, or something like that? You know, at what point are we going to say, okay, we've had enough?
Oh, and there is some indication that a lot of these programs were inspired by or have relation to DEA programs that are like anti-drug or FBI, anti-money laundering or anti-criminal stuff. So it's not... There's some kind of fluidity here, and I think it raises a lot of people's concern about who's doing what and why. And, you know, I'll sacrifice some rights for the security of the nation, but I don't really care about, someone bring a pound of weed into the country or whatever.
All right. Well, last thing I'll ask you, what happens next in this situation, in your opinion?
Sure. So this Section 215 of the law of the Patriot Act, which is undergirding a lot of these NSA activities, is set to run out in the end of the month. So Congress has to kind of deal with what they're going to do about it. And there's going to be this big fight, I think, between both between the parties and within the Republican Party about what to do about it. Mitch McConnell on the one side has said clean reauthorization. Some other folks have said, no, we need some reforms. I think it remains to be seen. I think the Hawks are really kind of doubling down. But we've got 2 essentially weeks of legislative time left in Congress, and I think there'll be somewhat of a slugfest in the next little bit.
All right. He is Julian Hattem. He is a staff writer covering technology policy for The Hill. You can follow him online at thehill.com. He's on Twitter at JMHattem. Thank you, Julian.
Thank you, guys.
All right, man.
Happy Friday.
Thanks, buddy.
I'm Clinton Yates. I'm filling in for Bill Press here. Getting through it, man. Summertime. I'm wearing shorts. I'm loving it. All right. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
Would you like a bag?
What do people really hate? Yep. Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, back at it. I'm Clinton Yates, filling in for Bill here on a Friday. Of course, now is the time of day where we tell you what the president is doing. Some of this stuff actually looks pretty cool. At 9:15 Pacific time, which is around lunchtime here, the president's going to the Nike headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon.
Yeah.
He's apparently going to be giving probably some sort of talk about trade. And he's also going to the National Guard base there later at 11:05 Pacific. Then in Central Standard Time, he's going to South Dakota, be at the Watertown Regional Airport. I mean, yeah, okay. You ever been to South Dakota?
I've never been to South Dakota. This is the 50th state.
This is the move.
This is the end of the road for him.
So it's like they pull out the whole, like this is the confetti drop.
You saved the best for last, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
He gets a free foot-long Subway sandwich now.
He buys beef jerky and all of a sudden, there's
Yeah.
balloons and all that everywhere. Apparently after that, he is delivering a commencement address for the graduating class at the Lake Area Technical Institute at the Watertown Civic Arena. That ought to be an interesting bit. And then he's coming back home tonight, so he'll be able to sleep at the White House tonight. But most importantly,
where's he going to stay in South Dakota?
Hey man, you've never been.
Oh, you're right.
How would you
That's
know?
fair.
There could be
Guilty as
incredibly exotic accommodations in South Dakota that nobody knows about because they don't want people to know about them.
That's true.
So that you, carpetbagging Southerners, don't come up there and ruin their good time.
That's fair.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I deserve
That's
every
why
bit of this.
people live in South Dakota because
Yeah.
they don't want people coming to see them.
I'm still not going to go there.
No, absolutely not. That would be insane. Kidding me?
Come on, let's be
There's
real.
no chance in the world.
Get real.
But so this Nike headquarters situation reminds me of a scenario because I went to the sneaker store yesterday because I went to see Action Bronson, one of my favorite rappers, and I was going to buy some new shoes before I went. And I went to an establishment near my home, and I decided to make a purchase. And I bought some sneakers that I haven't bought in a really long time. I bought some Air Force Ones, and they were $50. And
I wish we had that song queued up
I know,
now.
right?
I know.
Yeah, but I bought some ones, as they call them on the street. I've yet to wear them, but I'm going to visit New York next weekend, possibly, and I think I'm going to wear them there. So I'm feeling very, very cool.
That's the place to wear them.
It is. What was the last?
Where
pair of
else can
sneakers?
you wear them?
I wear them around my house, But what was the last pair of sneakers you bought, Peter?
Look,
dad bod situation
with his dad bod over here. Yeah, look, I don't buy a ton of sneakers. You know what I buy? I buy walking shoes. Because
okay,
look, I'm sorry,
You're not wearing Echoes, are you,
It's
Peter?
a bad hour for me. Now look, I
off well.
I wear walking shoes that are just big enough that I can tuck my knife into.
And a flask.
And a flask in the winter.
Okay.
And that's what I wear. I don't buy. I buy running shoes for when I exercise. I got a pair of Asics.
Okay.
That I run.
All right.
I'm the wrong
your
person
game
to
is
ask
not
that question.
tied
I got
on.
a terrible shoe
All right, when we
game.
get back,
Are you kidding?
Travis versus Travis. I'm Clinton Yates.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What they told us we were doing was going to rid the state of frivolous lawsuits. So we said, okay, let's vote for this.
Leading up to the 2003 effort in Texas, the insurance companies primarily, but also the medical industry, started this drumbeat. They were alleging that medical malpractice lawsuits were soaring and the cost of healthcare was going way up. They barraged the citizens of Texas with these frightening, scary messages that we were in some sort of crisis. But the reality was that simply wasn't true.
One of the things I think the public doesn't fully understand is that lawsuits are about a lot more than just seeking compensation for an individual plaintiff. By giving damages to the individual, the jury is sending a message about safety to the doctors, the nurses, the hospital. Please change your ways. Make healthcare safer to protect all of us.
Bill and Kelly Putnam experienced a nightmare scenario. They're in the nursing home with their father. The nurse administers medication improperly. As a result, he started to choke on the medication, and Kelly was forced to provide CPR on her father while staff at the nursing home did nothing.
I was probably 6 inches away from my dad's eyes. He's no longer thrashing, he's no longer moving.
And so they took him to the hospital, they worked on him, cause of death, aspiration. Texas Board of Nursing ruled that the nurse not only did what we said she did, but she also said that the facility had her destroy the medical records for that day and create a new version. I decided to give a lawyer friend a call. I went through probably 10, maybe more. All of them I got the same letter back stating that because of tort reform, we cannot afford to litigate these types of cases.
What the 2003 restrictions did was make it economically unfeasible for most attorneys to take most medical malpractice cases. It's a cynical attempt to make it harder for people to go to court by making it harder for them to get representation.
I do remember when Patricia Whitman first contacted me, because as a cardiologist, I was pretty outraged when I looked at the medical records.
Patricia Whitman visited the emergency room complaining of chest pains. They look at her EKG. Doctor says, no, you've got indigestion, go home. The symptoms persist. Next day she goes in, sees a different physician. She's been having a heart attack.
Anyone looking at this EKG in a patient with chest pain has to consider that that patient is having an acute heart attack until proven otherwise. All of these abnormalities were essentially ignored, and a diagnosis of acid reflux was made in Patricia Whitman's case, and that was the wrong diagnosis.
The doctor came in and he said that I had substantial permanent heart damage and that I was, quote unquote, 100% disabled. Prior to the heart attack, I had a 3,500 square foot home that I took care of, and I was on my feet 8 hours a day going to cosmetology school. Then I would come home and cook for my kids and do whatever else needed to be done. I did it all. after the heart attack, I couldn't keep up with the house. I couldn't pay the mortgage. My life has changed a lot. I will never be able to do what I used to do. I have to depend on 5 heart medications that I have to take every day in order to survive. This is a letter from one attorney. It would be difficult to prove that the ER physician's conduct rose to the level of gross negligence. No attorney would take my case.
Tort reform involved a specific passage of language that said that a simple negligence standard no longer applied to emergency room care in Texas. The new standard was a gross negligence standard called willful and wanton negligence.
You have to prove in court that that doctor saw me walk through the door and said, that's my next victim. And of course that doesn't happen. And so people like Patricia Whitman, who find themselves in the emergency room and are misdiagnosed or harmed, face almost no ability for accountability. If you look back and you break down the arguments made by the insurance companies and medical industry about the cost, quality, access of healthcare in Texas, by every metric, we're worse off today than we were 10 years ago. It has made life better and easier for a small group of corporate interests at the expense of the rest of us.
These corporations, they have no fear because they know that they're not going to be held responsible. It shouldn't be about money. But unfortunately, that's the only language these people speak. That's why we're out protesting.
We will stand out on the street in front of the facility with signs that state what happened and make sure that they understand that we're not going to go away and that what they did was wrong.
We must restore meaningful accountability in this state so that another family does not go through the same nightmare that they've been through. If enough people in the public say enough is enough, then politicians have to think twice. We're never going to be able to compete with the special interests in terms of campaign contributions and money. Where we have to compete with them is in boots on the ground. The more people that rise up and say, we want our rights back, then they have to think about it. And once we've made them think about it, then half the battle is won.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It's me, folks. Clinton Yates. I'm a columnist at the Washington Post, filling in for Bill here on a Friday. Want to thank everybody for tuning in. Of course, if you are watching us on Free Speech TV or TawkrTV, I thank you for that as well. Free Speech is seen on DirecTV and the Dish Network. TawkrTV is on youtube.com/TawkrTV. We're tweeting at BP Show. And that's about that. Everybody's here. Peter's here. Elisa's across the board. Jamie's running the phone. Cyprian's on the video screen. And if you're watching that video, you can see the two people who are here to my left and to my right, Travis Hughes and Travis Waldron, which means it is time for Travis versus Travis. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Great, man.
Travis Hughes, of course, is the NHL editor for SB Nation and the founder of Broad Street Hockey. And Travis Waldron is a sports reporter for Think Progress. You can find them both on Twitter. They are both verified, which means they are allowed to step into the building. That's a joke. All right, so this is the way the game works. I asked them trivia questions. This week we are going with a general sports knowledge situation. Last time we tried to go with a sort of homegrown deal. You're from Kentucky, you're from Jersey, Philly area. That didn't really quite work as well, so I figured we'd just broaden it out, make things a lot easier for everybody. And do we remember the rules, lads?
Close enough. Yeah. Answer questions correctly.
Yes, but if it's 1 point for an answer, but it's 2 points for a steal.
Right.
All right, so hold on. Let me write this down. Travis W., Travis H.,
And wait for the full question to complete.
I said, yes, that is a good. I said I was going to have big production value, but I didn't. And so, because I just didn't feel like doing it. All right. Question 1 for Mr. Hughes. All right, here we go. Tom Brady, the New England Patriots quarterback at the center of what is known as the Deflategate scandal, went to Junipero Serra High School in San Mateo, California. What other famous athlete went there too? Is it A, Brandi Chastain, B, Barry Bonds, C, Jason Kidd, or D, Christy Yamaguchi?
God, I have no idea. I'd ask you to repeat the high school, but that's not going to make a difference.
The high school is Junipero Serra High School in San Mateo, California.
I'm pretty sure I know this, by the way.
I don't even know which one of those are from California, let alone...
They're all from California.
They're all from California.
Yes, I didn't go way off board on that. They're all from California.
Let's just go with A. Brandi Chastain?
No. Incorrect.
Barry Bonds.
That is correct. Trav moving in for the steal. All right, so that is 2 for Travis. Barry Bonds, of course, played 22 seasons in Major League Baseball with the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Giants. Bonds received 7 NL MVP awards and went to 14 All-Star games.
And he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Actually, quite a bit. Yes, he should be in the Hall of Fame.
He's a cyclist now. Did you see that?
Yeah, I know, right?
It's amazing.
That is so weird. Anyway, all right. Question 2 for you, Mr. Waldron. Rory McIlroy, who shot a 3 under 69 at the Players' Championship yesterday, is a golfer from Northern Ireland. What is his favorite Premier League soccer team? A, Manchester United, B, Chelsea, C, Liverpool, or D, Arsenal?
I know he's not an Arsenal fan. I'm pretty sure it's United.
Correct. All right, Trav with an early lead. Of course, Rory is a Nike athlete, and he filmed a commercial with Wayne Rooney, who is a Man U striker, back in 2013. So that was a good one. All right,
well done, sir.
You need this.
I need this,
Travis, because other Travis. I guess there's no other Travis when you're both here. This complicates things. All right. New York Knicks forward Carmelo Anthony is reportedly going to have a cameo in a sequel to the series reboot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's not his first acting stint, though. Which one of these cable TV series has he not appeared in? Is it A, Sons of Anarchy, B, Law & Order SVU, C, Nurse Jackie, or D, Breaking Bad?
God. Do you know?
No. Which one is he not appearing in?
Yes, Mello is out here in these TV
Everybody's
streets.
on SVU, so he's been on SVU. Let's be real.
What's Nurse Jackie?
I have no idea.
You don't know what Nurse Jackie is? Oh, man.
Let's go with Nurse Jackie.
Incorrect. The one show that he has not appeared on is Breaking Bad. And as it turns out, a handful of players from the Los Angeles Clippers are going to be in that Ninja Turtles sequel as well. So that should be rather funny. Nurse Jackie's the one with, what's her name from?
Is it on ABC?
Goodfellas. No, it's on.
Oh, yeah, I know. I think I know that one.
Yeah, she was Tony Soprano's wife. Can't remember her name right now. Anyway, she's a great actress. Okay, so where are we at now? Mr. Waldron. Okay. Floyd Mayweather beat Manny Pacquiao in the alleged fight of the century last weekend. Full disclosure, I watched that fight at Travis's house. Fight of the century last weekend. The convicted abuser also once fought in the 1996 Atlanta Olympics as a featherweight. How did he finish? A, gold, B, silver, C, bronze, or D, off the medal stand altogether?
Bronze.
Dang.
I knew that one.
Do you remember
On
that? I knew that
fire
one.
over there.
Do you remember that?
He lost. It was a controversial loss.
It was a controversial
12-11, I think.
loss to a guy named Serafim Todorov, who was from. I will give you a bonus point if you know this. Do you know where that guy was from?
What was his name?
Serafim Todorov.
No.
Nice bonus point there. I don't know if anybody knows this.
Random bonus point there. Do you
No
know?
idea.
No. It's from Bulgaria, who actually went on to take the silver. So this is getting pretty out of hand.
Getting out of hand.
Pretty out of hand right now. It's 4-0, Mr. Waldron.
To make it clear that I did win last time.
Yes,
I came in.
True.
I did my homework last night.
Again, we're playing Travis versus Travis. We're here with Travis Hughes and Travis Waldron. Travis Waldron of Think Progress, Travis Hughes of SB Nation. Doing a little sports trivia. It's a Friday. Deal with it. Okay. So, next question. Jimmy Butler, who won... Wait, this is for...
Me.
Yes, Mr. Hughes. Jimmy Butler, who just won the NBA's Most Improved Player Award with the Chicago Bulls, had kind of a tough upbringing. His dad left his family when he was an infant, and his mother kicked him out of her house when he was 13. He ended up at Marquette and is now excelling in the pros. What city in Texas is he from? Is it A, Houston, B, Dallas, C, San Antonio, or D, Waco?
Ooh, Houston.
Hey. That is correct. He gets one.
There we go.
Right.
Shutout's over.
Back on the board. Butler ended up living with a family friend, and he went to a school called Tomball High School before attending Tyler Junior College in Tyler, Texas, on his way to Marquette. That's a great story, by the way. Situation happened in the Bulls with that guy. Glad to see his life get back around. All right, Mr. Waldron, this is kind of in your wheelhouse. The U.S. women's national soccer team is the favorite to win the World Cup taking place this summer ahead of Germany and Brazil. But when was the last time the American women won this tournament? A, 2011, B, 2007, C, 2003, or D, 1999?
1999.
That is correct. Wow, Travis really.
I also would not call them the favorite this summer, but
yeah, you know what? That's the Vegas odds, and that's actually a separate discussion. But I don't think they're the favorite to win this at all. They haven't won that bad boy in forever. Yeah. Okay. So that year was actually the first year that the tournament expanded from 12 to 16 teams. Did you know that? And it's the only time the host nation has ever won on home soil. So there's that. That was, I actually remember where I was. I was in Piscataway, New Jersey, at my aunt's house.
I could take you back to the exact spot in Louisville where I was.
What were you doing?
I was eating at a restaurant, and it was on TV, and I made my parents stay at the restaurant to watch the end of the match. I was like, no, we have to watch this. This is awesome.
That was a great moment. Okay. Mr. Hughes, to climb back to respectability here. Eddie Rosario of the Minnesota Twins hit a home run in his Major League Baseball debut last night on the first pitch he ever saw. How many players have ever done this in MLB history? Is it A, 28, B, 29, C, 30, or D, 31?
Toss up. 30.
Alas. It's actually 29. His family was in the stands because they're from Puerto Rico, and they all flew up for the occasion.
Awesome.
It was a pretty sweet moment because they were all
awesome.
They were all shooting the film, and they were all just like, screw it. It was all, like, we're done. So that was great.
Too.
Yeah, it was a good shot. So, all right, we are currently at 5-1 Waldron over Hughes. This is getting very much out of hand here, but we're going to continue with the game. All right, question number, I guess this is 8 total. Who is currently leading the NASCAR Sprint Cup standings? A, Dale Earnhardt Jr., B, Jimmy Johnson, C, Kevin Harvick, or D, Kurt Busch?
Dale.
Ooh, alas.
I looked at this last week, and I never pay attention. So, still going to get it wrong. Is it Kevin Harvick?
It is!
Hey!
2 points coming out of nowhere. All right. Harvick actually has 300.
I don't know.
He has 394 points, which means he's earned about $3.5 million so far. And the next Sprint Cup Series race is at Talladega Superspeedway. That was a huge moment right there, potentially changing this game.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Uh-oh.
So here we go. Francis Tiafoe is a 17-year-old American tennis player and is currently the youngest player in the top 300. He also happens to be signed with Rock Nation Sports. Which one of these players is not on Jay-Z's sports management label? A, Victor Cruz, B, Skylar Diggins, C, CeCe Sabathia, or D, Clint Dempsey? Is not with Rock Nation.
You said Sabathia, Clint Dempsey,
Skylar Diggins, and Victor Cruz. It's a good question, right?
That's a very good question. Because I don't know.
Right.
Like, I thought when you did this, I was like, I know all these. I know
Who is not on Rock Nation?
I'm going to say Skylar Diggins.
It's Clint. It is Clint. Clint is not with... Clint is not with...
Was he rumored to be?
I think so.
Yeah, but he's not. He's not. So is that a steal? Is that officially a steal? That's a steal. All right.
I had to get my 2 points back.
Well done.
Exactly. So
you guys over here throwing NASCAR knowledge on everybody.
All right. Last question, and I guess you can't really win, but we're going to ask this question anyway of you, Travis Waldron. 13 years ago yesterday, the greatest press conference in NBA history happened in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Of course, that was Allen Iverson talking about practice. What team did he end his NBA career with? A, the 76ers, B, the Nuggets, C, the Pistons, or D, the Grizzlies?
Memphis.
I think it's... He came back to Philly. I think it was Philly.
Correct. That is correct. Turns out this is a 1-point game. Wow. He came back and played 25 games for the 76ers in the 2009-2010 season to end his career where he started it. Alas.
Never practiced a day.
Travis Waldron wins by 1 point.
Sir?
It's fun.
It was good.
That comeback, that steal point actually turned out to be pretty huge. So what are we 1-1 in the season series?
We're 1-1.
1-1 season series. All right, cool.
Rubber
Good to
match
know.
coming up soon.
Travis versus Travis. That's the name of that game. Travis Waldron, Travis Hughes are here. When we're going to back, we're going to talk about actual sports instead of playing these idiotic games. I'm Clinton Yates.
This is the Bill Press Show.
They called her Little Sanju. She was born in a village at the foot of the Himalayas, the smallest of 7 brothers and sisters.
My family was very poor. To get by, we raised cows and we made small things for tourists out of bamboo. But we were always hungry, and no matter how hard he tried, my father was always in debt. When I was 11, my father told me I had to go to work making carpets. I had to leave with a man who took me to the carpet factory. The broker who took me away got paid, but they never paid my father anything. I made knots from 4 in the morning until 8 at night. There was never a day off. I was always hungry. I cut my fingers while weaving and had to weave with cut fingers. My hands began to look like my grandmother's. I cried every night. I thought the rest of my life would be only this.
It takes 1 million knots to make one 8x10 rug. In the 1990s, 1 million children were enslaved making carpets in South Asia. Then a hero entered the picture. It was you. If you knew how these carpets were made, you would no longer think they were so beautiful. And if you could choose a better rug, your buying power could end child slavery in the rug industry. From that simple idea, Goodweave was born. Here's how it works. To earn the Goodweave label, companies agreed not to employ children. Goodweave makes sure by conducting surprise inspections. When children are found, Goodweave helps them.
2 years ago, a Goodweave inspector named Grona found me in the factory. When I saw him, I was scared, but Grona put his arm around me and told me it would be okay. Grona took me to Hamrogar, a home for rescued carpet kids run by Goodweave. I'm the first person in my family to ever go to school.
Today, thousands of children like Sanju have been educated and rescued by Goodweave. And because you chose the Goodweave label, 3/4 of those million children weaving carpets are now free. And Sanju, with Goodweave's support, she's able to attend her village school and live at home where she belongs. Now that's a beautiful rug that tells a beautiful story. Stand with Sanju. Insist on the Goodweave label.
seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. For those of you who just got through listening to our riveting game show called Travis versus Travis, guess who won? Travis did. That's how it works. So we're here with Travis Waldron of the sports reporter for Think Progress, as well as Travis Hughes, who's the NHL editor for SB Nation and the founder of Broad Street Hockey, which means let's get an update on what's going on in the NHL playoffs, Mr. Hughes.
Yep. Well, it looks like the Montreal Canadiens are probably done. Looks like the Calgary Flames are probably done. Looks like the New York Rangers are probably done. Not really sure what we're going to get in the Stanley Cup final.
Okay. So that means we have whom left?
What's that?
So that means we have whom left who are not familiar with the opponents of those who
Yes. So we have, it looks like the Washington Capitals.
Who's that? Sorry, what?
The Washington Capitals.
Wow. The Washington Capitals. It's May, and we're talking hockey in D.C. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it looks like they're going to play their old Southeast Division rival, the Tampa Bay Lightning, in the conference finals. Should be a great series. The Caps are suddenly a defensive team, which is weird because they haven't been pretty much ever,
Right.
at least in the Alex Ovechkin era, the last 10 years or so. But yeah, they're suddenly a defensive team. New head coach, and Holtby is probably the best goaltender in the playoffs.
I would say
Braden
he's
Holtby.
arguably the best player in the NHL currently still playing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
personal opinion.
Him or Tyler Johnson from
Yeah.
the Lightning, who has 8 goals, I believe.
Yeah.
Unless he scored last night, I'm not sure. But rookie came out of nowhere, undrafted on the Lightning, and he's been great. So that should be a great series, if we get it. Both.
Is there a series for the final that the league is proverbially rooting for? in your
Chicago
opinion?
and either New York or Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just want your big TV markets. That's
Right.
all it is. Nobody wants, if that Anaheim-Tampa series happens, oh, man.
A couple of vacation spots. Yeah.
Right.
You don't think the Anaheim-Washington series would be intriguing for people with Boudreaux, who used to coach the Caps?
There's intrigue, but then you have to look at Anaheim's uniforms, and
Yeah,
it just
that's
makes
true.
your eyes want to bleed.
What happened there? Those things are terrible.
They had the Mighty Ducks uniforms
I know.
with the
Why did
teal
they
and
ever
the
go away from that?
eggplant.
They were so
Huge
cool.
mistake,
Yeah.
huge mistake.
good.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a mess. So,
Yeah.
what's going on in the NBA, Mr. Waldron?
We're all shedding tears for John Wall.
Ugh.
Hopefully going to be back
Oh, bro.
because the Wizards. I don't think the Wizards have a chance without him.
I don't think so either.
And then the East is you got the Bulls and the Cavs, which is just endlessly fun.
Yeah.
It's amazing. LeBron, every time they play the Bulls in the playoffs, no matter where he is, they lose game 1 and then they turn on.
Yeah, that's been a strange
And-
series.
Yeah. And they played. They looked like a totally different team the other night. And so that game's tonight.
Yeah.
And Clippers Rockets tonight, which those 2 games have been weird and outstanding. And Chris Paul is hopefully coming back.
Who do you think's going to be in the final?
I'm still riding Golden State.
Really?
I still think Golden State's going to come out of the West.
Okay.
And even without Kevin Love, I think the Cavs make it out of the East.
Okay.
If the Cavs make it out of this series, I think they'll go to the finals.
Warriors, Cavs, finals.
Seems a little more wide open than it has been in previous years.
It is. I think. It depends. I don't think anybody's buying the Warriors.
Well-
like they would if the Warriors were wearing the Spurs jerseys, or if they were
Right.
If they were a traditional power team.
Yeah.
I don't know that anyone would be talking. But also the West is great.
I
And-
saw that stat that said this is the first time in 15 years there will be a final without a Wade,
Yeah.
a Duncan, or a Kobe.
Wow.
So that's why it feels
Right.
so
Yeah.
wide open,
Yeah.
I think, is because all those
Right,
guys
and
you're used
I
to seeing
think
right
that
there.
the East feels more wide open because Kevin Love's out.
Yeah.
The Cavs were kind of like the prohibitive favorite by a mile.
And Atlanta hasn't really played like a 1 seed.
No, they haven't. So.
Right. All right. Well, of course, we got to get to one last thing, which is Deflategate. I want you to hear what Tom Brady said last night at whatever school he was at.
I don't have really any reaction, Jim. Our owner commented on it yesterday, and it's only been 30 hours, so I haven't had much time to digest it fully. But when I do, I'll be sure to let you know how I feel about it.
I don't even understand what that means. Like,
I love every
I've only had
reaction
30
he's had.
hours of thought.
Like,
I had forgotten until the other day that in his original press conference he made that comment that this isn't ISIS.
yeah, right.
right.
Yeah, he's. There's something about the way he's handled this. Listen, does anybody really care about Deflategate? No. But the lying,
Unless you're a Seattle Seahawks fan, then
the
you probably
lying and the misdirection. You think there? I don't know. What do you guys think about it?
I just don't care.
Yeah, this is not
I
on
think
your
in the
radar.
context of everything that's happened in the NFL
right
this year, like why people care about it is because it's easy. It doesn't have the hard questions of all the other things that they've dealt with. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, in the end, it's a cheating scandal. They have rules. They have ways to address this. Who cares?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I think it's reasonable.
It's so simple. It's so like Roger Goodell's going to come out and punish him, or he's not, and you know, whatever.
Yeah, when he does, then we'll see what really matters.
Right.
I think that I wouldn't. You know what? I'd give him a year. Why not? Hey,
wow.
Yeah. Hey, listen, you cheat, you get caught. You get punished.
Multiple times.
That's how it works. Travis Waldron is here. Travis Hughes is here. I'm Clinton Yates. You can look them up on Twitter. You can find their handles. Travis won today, as Travis does every week.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
Eye cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
What's up, kiddos? I'm Clinton Yates. I'm a columnist for the Washington Post, filling in for Bill here on a Friday. Winding things down, but not before we take things across the pond with British freelance writer Libby Watson. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
Yeah?
Hanging in there?
I'm hanging in there.
What'd you eat for breakfast this morning?
I had a donut.
A donut?
Which you provided very
So did I.
Yeah.
Yes, they're right over there. So those were delicious.
Mhm.
All right, so here's what the deal. We're going to break down this whole situation that's going on with the British Prime Minister voting and all this, but I need to know, what is your setup? Like, what channel do you watch stateside for your coverage? What's your setup as the
Fox News?
Yeah.
As everything unfolds.
Yeah.
That's where you go for news. No, I stream the BBC online.
Okay.
Luckily they put a live stream up. So
I'm interested in how they cover elections versus how we cover elections.
Do they have a Karl Rove character?
Yeah, I mean, what's the punditry
Kind of.
outlook on that? How does that work?
Yeah, I guess it's a little different. They still have the studios with like the stupid holograms.
Oh, yes.
Last night, Jeremy Vine was standing in the middle of a CGI Big Ben and using the hands of Big Ben as what they call a swingometer. There's a very important thing in British politics, which is the swingometer, which is the percent that each party's swing to. So,
It's
like,
got a very technical name,
it's
too.
It's like it's a thing. I don't know why. They don't. I guess they don't really have pundits in the same way. Sometimes you get Alistair Campbell, who was Blair's top spin guy, and he's the guy who inspired Malcolm Tucker in The Thick of It and In the Loop. He's this sweary Scottish guy, and he's pretty much evil, but they keep inviting him onto the BBC to talk about politics because he's like the Dark Lord of British politics. So,
right.
So you get him. So yeah, I guess he would be the equivalent to Karl Rove.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a lot more understated. There's a lot of kind of rolling footage of like old women in village halls counting papers.
Right.
They still count the ballots, by hand on tables. It's a lot quieter. It's not as shouty as American coverage.
Yeah, as typically goes for everything.
Yeah.
Right. We tend to amp things up. To the top.
Yeah. So break this down for me. I mean, what were we looking at last night? Because a lot of people, quite frankly, like to believe that they understand what's going on in British politics, and they don't. They just know who they're going to look at on TV when the president goes over there and talks to one person. But explain to America who the candidates are and what we were sort of expecting versus what might have happened.
So the candidates are. It's slightly complicated in that we don't vote for a candidate like you would for president. You don't go into a voting booth and vote for David Cameron or Ed Miliband. You're voting for your local member of parliament, so as if you were voting for Congress here. But then the person who becomes prime minister is the person who leads the party that has the majority in parliament. Now in 2010, no one had an overall majority, but the Conservatives were the largest party. So the Conservative leader, David Cameron, became Prime Minister, and they entered a coalition government with the Liberal Democrats, who were the third biggest party. And it was a disaster for the Liberal Democrats because they're kind of left of centre, whereas the Conservatives are right wing. So it didn't really make much sense. And the Liberal Democrats just kind of moved away from all of their principles. So the candidates this time for Prime Minister were David Cameron, who is the incumbent Prime Minister. He's a very sort of upper class, posh dude, went to Oxford and Eton. And then the challenger was Ed Miliband for Labour. And he was sort of an interesting one. He ran against his brother in the leadership contest in Labour. And
what?
Yeah, it's weird.
That's awesome.
I kind of love that.
Yeah, I'd love to see more of that in these parts.
It'd be a great election, right?
Right. I mean, there's like 30 of us in the UK, so you start to,
you just kind of the pool runs pretty shallow.
Right.
Yeah.
But he defeated him, and he was more lefty, so he took Labour in a more like left wing direction, and it didn't work. Ed Miliband's Labour lost seats last night, and that was partly because of the Scottish National Party. So the Scottish National Party obviously only runs for seats in Scotland, and they just came off losing the independence referendum back in September. I don't know if you remember. Scotland did not leave the UK.
Nope.
But they won a lot of seats last night. They took almost all the Scottish seats. So now they've become this huge party.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. Other parties, UKIP, the UK Independence Party, everyone was expecting them to be kind of a spoiler in this election. They're the sort of anti-European Union, anti-immigration. It's a bit like the Tea Party with the...
Oh, dear.
Yeah. They have problems with their candidates saying racist things. And they keep saying, well, every party's got problems, and it's just that the media reports on UKIP more. But
so it's a lot like the Tea Party.
It's exactly like the Tea Party. Yeah, they have candidates who do things like calling a Thai woman a ting tong.
I've never heard that, but it doesn't sound good.
No,
it's not good. Yeah, someone who called a Chinese woman a chinky bird, which is it's both the most British and racist thing you could probably say. Yeah, so they keep doing things like that. But the UKIP was interesting because the way the electoral system works, obviously, because it's in seats, it's it doesn't matter what the popular vote share is, it's how many seats you win. And so UKIP came second in about 90 constituencies.
Wow.
Yeah, but they actually lost seats in the end. They lost one of their MPs. So luckily, not many of them in Parliament, so they're not going to be a major player, but they are quickly becoming, the third largest party, which is very scary for anyone who isn't insane racist.
Right. We're talking with Libby Watson here, who's in studio. If you want to read her piece on Gawker, it's called Meet the Wankers Who Want to Be Britain's Prime Minister.
We'll tweet that out, by the way.
Great title.
BP show. I want to ask you about the polling, because you talked about UKIP and how people expected that to maybe have some sort of an impact, and there were some other people that were maybe going to do better, but the polling was way off.
Yeah.
So they haven't really gotten this any better than we have necessarily.
No, and I would argue much worse.
Yeah.
The polling that I was looking at when I wrote my article, so if you read my article now, it looks a little bit out of date. Some of the predictions I made were very, very wrong. But that was based on all the forecasts said that it was going to be what we call a hung parliament, which is when no one gets an overall majority. The predictions were like the Tories, the Conservative Party, who the incumbents would get maybe 280 or something, and they ended up getting 330 seats, which is enough to do an overall majority, which they didn't even have before. So they actually increased the number of seats they had. Right. Wow. Labour was expected to get maybe 260, 270, so not much behind the Tories, and they've ended up with like 230. So it was I was expecting either just constitutional chaos or maybe Ed Miliband and Labour to do a sort of coalition arrangement with the Scottish National Party. But it turns out we didn't need a coalition at all because the Conservatives increased their majority, which is just weird. This kind of happened one time before in 1992 when the Conservatives were in power and everyone thought that Labour were going to kick them out. But then on election day, I guess everyone went back to the Tories.
Can we expect to see any noticeable change in how business gets done now? Or is it just going to be more of the usual?
I think it's largely going to be more of the usual. Obviously, the Liberal Democrats aren't in the coalition anymore, so they won't get the tiny say that they had before. But I don't think they were really they were kind of kept in a back room.
Right. Right.
Things that we can look forward to include a referendum on EU membership that the Conservatives promised. So Britain might be leaving the EU in 2017, which I think would be a disaster. But I think that, we were all expecting at least whoever the government was not ready to have a mandate. And this looks like a mandate for the Conservatives. They've gone from having to share power to having full power. But in the campaign, they did have to run a little bit leftwards on some of their austerity policies that have just been disastrous for the poorest people. So, maybe they'll let up on that a bit, but I think they're going to consider this a mandate to continue austerity, continue cuts to welfare.
All right. Well, we're talking with Libby Watson, who is a freelance British writer. You can find her on Twitter at Libby C. Watson. Before we go to break here, I want to read a tweet from the great Dave Weigel. He says, every UK election, I think the same thing. We need to import the every candidate stand together as the results are read tradition. That would be awesome. Anyway, I'm Clinton Yates and filling in for Bill Press. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program.
It is a true statement.
Just stepping all over the intro to the
Sorry,
segment.
I'm sorry.
That's what we're doing here.
Sorry.
Blowing it all out here on a Friday morning. It's just everything, the wheels are coming off. I'm kidding.
Sorry.
I'm Clinton Yates. I'm a columnist for the Washington Post. I'm hosting the Bill Press Show today on Friday. Libby Watson is with us. She's a freelance writer who happens to be British, which means that we are talking about her home nation.
To be fair, we didn't know any other British people.
I know a ton of British people.
I'm kidding. No, she actually wrote a really good piece about this.
No, it's a good piece. It's called Meet the Wankers Who Want to Be Britain's Prime Minister. It's up on Gawker right now. It's very funny. It has what we like to call colorful language, and we like color around here. Speaking of which, this is a radio segue from a professional happening right here. Does anybody other than old white guys run for anything in English politics, British politics?
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm really glad you brought that up.
Every time, I just, it's just.
Yeah, there's plenty of them. There were some female party leaders this time, so we've at least got that. But it was entirely white. I would throw back at you that the Republican Party is not looking so good either.
This is an equal opportunity offense situation.
Absolutely.
This country is terrible at that. I'm not implying that we are somehow above this sort of notion. I was just wondering if what I noticed in this most recent round of people I was seeing was as similar as it is to here.
Yeah, you're right. And Parliament is predominantly, not only predominantly white and male, although it has got better at having women. there's a astounding number of people who went to Oxford and Cambridge there. You know, I mean, in the population, it must be like 0.5% or something, and it's something like 10 or 20% in Parliament, especially in the Conservative Party. That's a high percentage of people who went to Oxford and Cambridge. So it's a pretty elitist thing, despite being called the House of Commons.
Right.
What do you know?
Huh? Who would have thought that? That the system that created the common law scenario that this country runs under is very much rooted in the same notions of conservatism. That
doesn't give me much hope for our own system.
No.
Like, this has been so goofy for so long.
Exactly.
And yet they're so far ahead of us. Damn it.
It's weird.
Sorry,
so,
guys.
this is the key question here. Why should anybody on this side of the pond care about what happens in the UK with the elections?
Well, there is the special relationship. I mean, you know, we are we're one of your greatest allies. We love to think of ourselves as America's best friend. You know, prime ministers going back years have close relationships with the American president. I remember, I think, when it was Gordon Brown and Barack Obama. Gordon Brown,
they're boys.
Yeah. Sent
about Gordon Brown.
It was very embarrassing. He
dad
sent.
bods. We're talking about dad bods.
That's a
Gordon
dad
Brown was
bod.
the ultimate dad bod.
Yeah.
He is a total dad bod.
That's a granddad
That's a
bod.
top 10.
Yeah. He sent Barack Obama, you know, this beautiful desk made of, you know, the timbers of some, you know, 19th century or 18th century ship. And Obama sent Gordon Brown 10 DVDs of American movies, which he couldn't even play in the UK because of the region differences. So
I forgot about that. Yeah.
I forgot the list of DVDs too.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was. I think it was all.
I'm gonna look. I'll look.
Google box. Yeah.
It was kind of embarrassing for us because it's just, you know, exemplary of how the special relationship is one-sided. We love America. We want America to love us, and, you know, we want to be important. Although I wouldn't say that's true of, you know, the British people. A lot of Brits look at me weirdly when I say I love America.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, how prevalent is that sentiment? I mean, does anybody really care on the other side of the pond, or is this just one of those things that exists in the halls of Parliament and Congress that sort of makes everybody feel better from an elitist standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, people like to joke about America, and people. I won't go into what the stereotypes are because you probably know what they are.
Loud, fat, ugly.
Hey guys.
Stupid is really the main one.
That's
Stupid, I'm afraid.
up there
Which is
too.
not fair because Brits are really stupid too. Our schools are also bad. But I think there's still this kind of idea that America is glamorous. You know, we have American TV on our TV, and everybody watches it, and everyone wants to, you know, go to New York and be in the yellow cab and stuff like that.
Right.
Even if, you know, I mean, during the Bush years, there was a lot of anti-American sentiment. People hated America. And I think since Obama, it's got a little better. But yeah, it's definitely an important political thing, even if it's not widespread culturally.
By the way, I have to read some of this stuff from the Daily Mail. This is when Obama gave Gordon Brown 25 American DVDs. All right. Barack Obama, the leader of the world's richest country, gave the prime minister a box set of 25 classic American films, a gift about as exciting as a pair of socks.
I would be more excited by a pair of socks than I would be by getting a bunch of DVDs. I like socks.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Socks are back.
What was in the box? 25 DVDs, Citizen Kane, The Godfather. I'm just going to mention a couple of them. The Godfather, good movie. Schindler's List. The Wizard of Oz.
The
Wizard of Oz. Come on. That can't make the list.
Yeah. I'm sure
he's
hasn't
never
seen
The Wizard of Oz, right?
Psycho was on there.
Interesting pick.
Star Wars Episode 4.
Okay.
But not the other ones?
Not the other ones, just that one.
Can't splurge for the box set, Barack?
Yeah, you should have given him the whole
Come
thing.
on, son.
On the Waterfront, E.T.
What's up with these kid
Terrible list.
movies? Like, this is
movies for 12-year-olds. Show this to your grandkids. They'll love them. Let's see. What else?
Give me one more.
Some Like It Hot. Ugh.
Man, that's a bad list.
To Kill a Mockingbird. That's a good movie.
That's not a bad movie.
Or the Michael Bay movies.
Right.
Yeah, when we're talking American movies, you get like the Transformers box set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to have something.
Independence Day.
Sean Connery in it. All right. Enough of this foolishness. Back to the seriousness. Thank you for being here, Libby.
Of course,
I appreciate
anytime.
it. She's Libby Watson. She's a freelance writer. Gawker is where you got to go. It's called Meet the Wankers Who Want to Be Britain's Prime Minister. She uses words that we can't use on this air here in the piece, which makes it a lot funnier.
Yeah.
You can say wankers, apparently.
Than either of us can be. Right.
We just did.
We just did.
We just did.
Why not? All right. We'll be back. Wrap up the show. I'm Clinton.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment, and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, kiddos, winding down the week. It's Friday morning. Got to thank everybody who was here today. Kai Wright, who's the features editor for The Nation and the former editorial director of Colorlines, came on and talked about Baltimore with us. That was a good little discussion. Julian Hattem, who covers technology policy for The Hill, he was on too. We talked about the situation with NSA. Of course, the ever-popular segment Travis versus Travis was just slays in the ratings all across the nation, coast to coast. It's
People love it.
Taking over the world.
People love it.
Sports trivia on a political talk show.
We only do it because people demand it.
It's a hit. I mean, if you saw our mailbox, they're just overflowing with demands for people of similar names to play games against each other, so I can tell idiotic punchline jokes. Of course, Travis Waldron of Think Progress and Travis Hughes of SB Nation. He's the NHL editor there. A couple of great guys. And, of course, Libby Watson was just here. She's a freelance writer who is British, talking about the scenario that is unfolding with the prime ministerial elections there. It's time for What's Up With Your Weekend? Peter, what's up with your weekend?
It's going to be a very low-key weekend. Very low-key. It's Mother's Day. I got to call. Today is my mom's birthday.
Oh.
Aww.
So
Okay.
I got to call my mom and do the birthday call today, and then we're going to have to come back on Sunday.
You got to run out of material?
And then I've been saving up. I've been saving up of like what I'm going to talk to mom about, because I got to get at least 10 minutes of conversation.
That's
both
a long
times.
segment.
Both times.
That's a long
because it's a birthday
Yeah.
and it's mother. Like,
yeah, I
those
know.
are the
Trust
two
me. I'm
times
going
I
to my
got
mom's house on Sunday, and she's like, I don't want to go anywhere. I just want you to move boxes around the house.
Gotta do it.
So it's going to be a manual labor Mother's Day for your boy.
Gotta do it.
Anyway, for Peter, for Elisa, for Jamie, for Cyprian, I'm Clinton. Hi, Mom. I'll see you Sunday. Have a good one, guys.
This is the Bill Press Show.